On March 4, 1865, President Abraham Lincoln delivered his second inaugural address. This address reads, "Fellow countrymen, at this second appearing to take the oath of a presidential office, there is less occasion for an extended address than there was at the first. Then a statement somewhat in detail of a course to be pursued seemed fitting and proper. Now, at the expiration of 4 years, during which public declarations have been constantly called forth on every point and phase of the great contest which still absorbs the attention and engrosses the energies of the nation, little that is new could be presented. The progress of our arms, upon which all else chiefly depends, is as well known to the public as to myself, and it is, I trust, reasonably satisfactory and encouraging to all. With high hope for the future, no prediction in regard to it is ventured." On the occasion corresponding to this 4 years ago, all thoughts were anxiously directed to an impending civil war. All dreaded it, all sought to avert it. While the inaugural address was being delivered from this place, devoted altogether to saving the Union without war, insurgent agents were in the city seeking to destroy it without war, seeking to dissolve the Union and divide effects by negotiation. Both parties depreciated war, but one of them would make more rather than to let the nation survive, and the other would accept war rather than to let it perish, and the war came. 1/8 of the whole population were colored slaves, not distributed generally over the Union, but localized in the southern part of it. These slaves constituted a peculiar and powerful interest. All knew that this interest was somehow the cause of the war. To strengthen, perpetuate, and extend this interest was the object for which the insurgents would rend the Union, even by war, while the government claimed no right to do more than to restrict the territorial enlargement of it. Neither party expected for the war the magnitude or the durations which it has already attained. Neither anticipated that the cause of the conflict might cease with or even before the conflict itself should cease. Each looked for an easier triumph, and a result less fundamental and astounding. Both read the same Bible and pray to the same God, and each invokes his aid against the other. It may seem strange that any man should dare to ask a just God's assistance in wringing their bread from the sweat of other men's faces, but let us judge not, that we be not judged. The prayers of both could not be answered. That of neither has been answered fully. The Almighty has his own purposes. Woe unto the world because of offenses, for it must needs be that offenses come, but woe to that man by whom the offense cometh. If we shall suppose that American slavery is one of those offenses which, in the providence of God, must needs come, but which, having continued through his appointed time, he now wills to remove, and that he gives both North and South this terrible war as the woe due to those by whom the offenses came, shall we discern therein any departure from the divine attributes which the believers in a living God always ascribe to him? Finally do we hope, fervently do we pray, that this mighty scourge of war may speedily pass away. Yet, if God wills that it continue until all the wealth piled by the bondsman's 250 years of unrequited toil shall be sunk, and until every drop of blood drawn with the lash shall be paid by another drawn with the sword, as was said 3,000 years ago, so still it must be said, the judgments of the Lord are true and righteous altogether. With malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right as God gives us to see the right, let us strive on to finish the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds, to care for him who shall have borne the battle, and for his widow and his orphan, to do all which may achieve and cherish a just and lasting peace among ourselves and with all nations." In this address, President Lincoln addressed the Civil War, and how neither side had wanted the war, but both sides had been willing to wage it if necessary, one to save the Union, and the other to destroy it. President Lincoln also addressed the fact that both sides read the same Bible and prayed to the same God, both asking for God's help in the fight against each other. Lincoln said, "It may seem strange that any man should dare to ask a just God's assistance in wringing their bread from the sweat of other men's faces, but let us judge not, that we be not judged." Here, President Lincoln quoted a part of the Sermon on the Mount. Matthew 7:1 says, "Judge not, that ye be not judged." And Luke 6:37 states, "Judge not, and ye shall not be judged. Condemn not, and ye shall not be condemned. Forgive, and ye shall be forgiven. President Lincoln then moved to stating that the prayers of both sides could not be answered, and that neither had fully been answered, but God has his own purpose, and quotes Matthew 18:7, which says, Woe unto the world because of offenses! For it must needs be that offenses come, but woe unto that man by whom the offense cometh. President Lincoln here suggests that American slavery was an offense that must needs come in God's providence, and has now come to God's time to remove it, but that the Civil War was given to the North and South as the woe due to those by whom the offense came. Shall we discern therein any departure from those divine attributes which the believers in a living God always ascribe to him? President Lincoln then continues, Fondly do we hope, fervently do we pray that this mighty scourge of war may speedily pass away. But that if it was God's will that it continued until all the evils of American slavery had been paid for by the war, that it would still be said like it had been said 3,000 years ago, the judgments of the Lord are true and righteous altogether. Here, President Lincoln was quoting Psalms 19:9, which says, The fear of the Lord is clean, enduring forever. The judgments of the Lord are true and righteous altogether. President Lincoln then concludes, With malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right, as God gives us to see the right, let us strive on to finish the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds, to care for him who shall have borne the battle, and for his widow and his orphan, to do all which may achieve and cherish a just and lasting peace among ourselves and with all nations. In conclusion, President Lincoln's second inaugural address discussed the shared faith of the North and the South, the Civil War as God's punishment on America because of slavery, God's righteous judgment, and how the people should react. A beautiful picture of America's Christian heritage.